Are you familiar with this type of exercises or activities? As a language learner, you may have gone through different exercises that look like this. Potentially your teachers took you to a lab or used the technology available in the classroom to take you through different, matching exercises such as this one where you read a sentence and you need to choose from a series of options the correct option to complete that sentence. Or perhaps you played some type of memory games like this one, or even crossword puzzles. So this kind of technology and tools used to improve language we call tutorial call technology. Tutorial call then refers to the implementation of computer programs that include an identifiable teaching presence, specifically for improving an aspect or some aspects of language proficiency. There are myths around this type of technology, and because of these different myths, tutorial call has been marginalized because teachers believe all the myths around this technology. So one of the myths is that tutorial call is behaviorist, so that students just are responding in different behavioral ways when they are interacting and not really, communicating or negotiating meaning. Another myth is that tutorial software is more like a drill and practice. And therefore there's no, room or opportunity for discussion or conversations. Another myth is that it is not communicative. That links to the previous 2 points that we mentioned, and that learners have no control over the activity. So then the idea is that if these activities are in a disk or CD-ROM, then it's behaviorist. But if it's on the internet, it is communicative. But remember, these are just myths. We need to go back to the theories of second language acquisition, for instance, to see whether these myths are truth or not. Some research, a lot of research actually, since 1996, or even beyond that, shows that tutorial call promotes a mix of approaches. So it has embedded, or these activities involve cognitive, communicative, and constructivist approaches. This is because the kind of exercises, when designed for students to have conversations, to analyze what they need to respond and discuss and negotiate ideas with their tutor or other peers, they go through this communicative process where they construct knowledge, negotiate it, and then arrive at a conclusion and choose an option, to respond to these exercises. So they help build comprehension skills, and they're effective when used, as I mentioned, in pair work or group work. So rather than just the student being by himself, herself, on the computer, the idea is that they are working with other people, and the technology is just a medium for them to have this kind of negotiation skills, communication, to then, build that knowledge. Teachers can be involved in the selection of the design. Actually, they're instrumental in the kind of activities they design, because these materials could be developed by teachers, selected by teachers, implemented by teachers, and then evaluated by teachers. So they're not removed from the equation, they're always part of it. Students can choose a theme for the activity. So remember, We could give students the option, the autonomy to decide what kind of theme, topic they want to do in order to practice, in order to interact with the language, use the language through these different kind of resources. So we see then the myth versus the truth based on research. And we see then that there are a lot of positives around tutorial call technology. In the literature of tutorial call, there is often this tutor-tool dichotomy. The tool or the role of the tool is viewed as one in which the computer does not evaluate but enhances the learning process. And the teacher's role is generally considered to be absent in the tutorial role and one of great involvement in the role of the tool. However, there is evidence that tutorial tool or this distinction may not longer, have a clear cut because there is research that shows that learners enjoy a fair amount of control in being able to exercise, their options when they're interacting with this kind of technology, and may view computer drills as a tool to enhance their learning. And the teachers are mainly active and involved in both, in the creation of the activities, the design of the activities, as I said, the selection of the activities, and monitoring, and also, helping students out with the different exercises. So again, the tutor is really not removed from the equation. So recently, this idea of the role of the tutor and the role of the tools is more seen as an inclusive, mutually inclusive, because one cannot exist without the other. Promises of using tutorial call technology are: it helps learners pick up conscious knowledge of the language. This is a way in which they can learn grammar, vocabulary. It helps them to improve proficiency in the receptive skills, such as reading and listening. Those are, receptive skills. And it also may help to improve pronunciation. In what ways can we use tutorial call exercises? And which context? Or have you used this technology in your learning experiences, in your experiences as a language learner, as a tutor, as a teacher? Tell us a little bit about that. Recent work in this field of tutorial call says that tutorial call activities promote interactivity. We've seen that as one of the main key points in the reading by Hubbard and Siskin. Corrective feedback, students get feedback right there and then, through the different options. For instance, if they choose the wrong option, they may get a hint, they may get some kind of feedback that tells them, why this option is incorrect. Students, nowadays, if they wish, they can learn to code if they're using a specific software. And this involves both teachers and students. So there are tools like Hot Potatoes, for instance, H5P, Quizlets, that, as tutors, if we want to involve students in the design of an activity, they could learn how to, create these activities themselves. Not only coding, it also depends on the kind of learning and ICT skills that students have and the teachers have. But recently, a lot of these technologies, like the ones I mentioned before, H5P, Quizlet, Kahoot, and others, are very intuitive in how people use them and access them. It activates learners' schema and get them to think about what they are looking at to promote metacognitive skills and autonomy. We will look at autonomy later on in this topic of reading and reading strategies. This technology gets students to notice how language works through, analysis, through evaluation of gaps, ideas, looking at different options. And it helps to get students to explain why they choose an answer, why they, what some answers might be wrong. It reinforces knowledge of particular elements of the language. And as we mentioned before, these kind of technologies are better and more effective when they are used around group work. So if we go into the idea of reading skills and reading strategies and using this kind of tasks to promote such reading skills and strategies, we need to consider the different cognitive perspectives. So when we talk about strategies, we need to know that the strategies that we use when we are reading are conscious actions that we take to improve language learning. So strategies are observable. For instance, you might be taking notes at this moment in time as you are listening to me, or during a lecture. You might compare these notes with the notes of your peers. And this, the strategy of note-taking helps you to understand, comprehend the text, remember information, make connections between the information that you have taken with your own experiences, and so on and so forth. Because strategies are conscious, then there is active involvement. So you're not just passively taking in input when you read or when you listen to conversations. You are actively trying to understand, decode, comprehend the message. So we can identify individual strategies such as note-taking, such as creating a mind map, or making connections between your experience and what you read. And we can then talk about them as the different kind of things that you do when you are receiving information and processing information in order to then develop your own response to that information. Strategies are related to each other and must be viewed as a process and not just a single action. So there are many things happening when we are strategizing our skills. Reading is acknowledged to be a complex process, often described by Hanson Smith as a reading puzzle. Those who are familiar with the work of Bloom and his taxonomy and are familiar with this kind of pyramid know that there are lower and higher order skills. Lower skills involve remembering, understanding, and applying, and higher order skills involve analysis, evaluation, and creation. Now, when we read, we put into practice all of these different skills. But if we want to teach students how to read, we might break this cognitive process, in different chunks. And we could apply different strategies, such as bottom up, where we ask students to decode the message by recognizing letters, recognizing vocabulary, grammatical structures, before they jump into understanding the full meaning of a message. So it goes bottom up, is zooming in into words, meanings, vocabulary of specific, words, sounds of letters, and so on and so forth. Whereas a top-down strategy is about, okay, I'm not focusing on the letter, the sound, the meaning of that letter, or the grammar. I want to understand the whole meaning of the whole message. So based on the reader's reasoning skills and prior knowledge, we can see whether the person who's receiving this message can understand what this message is about and in what sociocultural context might be, implicit. So we could then practice through different tasks, either bottom-up strategies or top-down strategies. And if we want to involve both, we can also do that by applying both type of strategies in one task that we design. So in the interactive strategy, the learner actively uses a mixture of decoding skills, reasoning, and prior knowledge to interact with the text and respond or create something to be able to respond to that message that has been received. And this is often, for instance, the stage of maybe you are all familiar with IELTS and those, written tasks where you're given a message and you need to develop an essay, for instance. So you need to understand the message, use your previous knowledge, and then all your skills to write something. Whereas a top-down strategy, you might be given a reading from the IELTS and you use scheming as strategy to understand the whole message and answer some questions about that. And if we continue thinking about the IELTS, bottom-up strategies are more like scanning, when we focus on specific points of that message, that text, if we're talking about a reading task, in order to respond specific questions about specific information. And how we can practice this, as I said, and I mentioned before, there are a lot of learning apps such as Babel, Bazoo, Duolingo, and well, you can see other here, Memrise, that teach you how to learn a language. And most of these technologies go through these kind of exercises and activities that we've seen. Crosswords, completing a sentence, filling the gap, listening, repeating information, and so on and so forth. It would be a good idea if you enroll into one of these apps, just to see the kind of different tasks that they use to promote reading skills, for instance, which is a topic for this week. We have, here a listening exercise where students listen to what this little character says, and then you respond to that by formulating, organizing a sentence. This is a Spanish lesson. You might go through different stages, earn points, and a lot of other, prizes to motivate you to learn a language, which is very common in this kind of apps. All those incentives for you to continue learning vocabulary exercises when you need to match a sentence. There are also, speak the sentence to evaluate your pronunciation. Organizing a sentence, which goes back to, understanding and putting into practice those bottom-up skills to understand a word, then to place it grammatically in a specific way, and then to generate a meaningful sentence. There are different authoring softwares that you can explore in your own time. So do take the opportunity to explore this kind of technology. H5P is one that enables you to design activities for your students, for yourself. Potatoes is a bit, older technology, but still useful if you want to, get back to basics. Quizlet is a more modern, a little bit easier than H5P. And well, we know from other different contexts, if you come from a different country and know different apps, you can also use them and share with us, this technology. It'll be nice to see what other people use for their own learning purposes or teaching purposes. That's it for today. There's more further reading in Canvas for you to follow up this topic if you're familiar, if you want to know more about it, if you're interested in this topic for the final assessment. Thank you very much for listening. We'll see you soon.